Well, here I am in a location familiar to many of us. It's, of course, in the church hall in Martin's Memorial Church, a place where many of us will be missing because we would gather in here after a morning service for a cup of tea or coffee and a bit of fellowship. But I thought I would share with you the word on Wednesday for this week from here. And that's because today I've set up my drum kit in the church hall, and I'd like to share with you a few thoughts on the topic of rhythm. Rhythm and music as a whole is one of the greatest gifts that God has given us. Every time I sit down to play the drums, I, in the words of Eric Liddell, feel God's pleasure. I absolutely love doing it. What I'd like to speak about today is how drumming and music and rhythm as a whole often reminds me of my daily Christian walk. There's a passage in the Bible that will be familiar to many of us from Galatians 5. It's the one on the fruit of the Spirit. Fruit of the Spirit being love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. These are all good things. These are the results of living a life by the Spirit. But what I'd like to focus on today is in verse 25, where it says, "Let us keep in step with the Spirit." Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. What do the drums have to teach us about keeping in step with the Spirit? Well, I believe there's 4 things, and let me take you to the drums now to show you. The first thing has to do with our individual uniqueness. I remember watching a video not that long ago featuring the great drummer from the band The Police, Stuart Copeland, where he talked about the uniqueness of drumming and how if you got 1,000 drummers to sit behind 1,000 drum kits, ask them to play the exact same beat, the exact same speed, and at the exact same time, you get 1,000 different results. Now, some of these results might be minute, but if you sat down and played this rhythm, you'd get a whole smorgasbord of differences. Some might play this part of the drum kit a little bit heavier, some might play a little bit lighter. Some might add a little few things on the snare drum here, or some might play the kick drum in various different ways. Some might add in other parts of the drum kit. The point being is that in our Christian lives, we've all got something to offer. Even in this different and difficult time at the moment, we all have something to bring to God's house. We all have a gift, or more than one gift, but we've all been given something that God has placed in our hearts and in our lives, because God loves each and every one of us, and we're His children. So that's the first thing. The second thing the drums has to teach us about living the Christian life and in keeping in step with the Spirit is the drummer's role in a band. It's not that we're front and centre, grabbing all the attention. It's that we're in the background. But that doesn't mean our role is limited. Actually, it's an active role. The drummer's role is to keep the beat, keep the time. And if a drummer didn't do that, well, quite frankly, they're not a very good drummer. How do we learn, though, to keep the beat? Well, there's a device that helps us really well, and this is called a metronome. If I press the button, the drummer will keep to that beat, and as long as the drummer listens to that metronome, then the band won't speed up or slow down or go off in another different direction. So the role is an active role. The drummer has to work on his time or her time. The drummer has to not be passive in that, but take part and to grow and to learn and to recognize that our place is at the back. And that doesn't mean, though, that it is a lesser role. It means that actually we have a substantial role to play, but we recognize that God is at the center of everything that we do. And we rely on His metronome, His Spirit, to keep us and to lead us and to guide us. So that's the second thing. The third point is finding a helpful starting point. Now, what I mean by this, many of us will have experienced, or most of us, or if not all of us, various ups and downs in our Christian walk over the past 6 months. I know I have. And lockdown, coronavirus, everything has brought things to a standstill. We've all had to adjust, adapt, and learn. But one of the things I find about drumming and its helpfulness with regard to the spiritual life is that, again, I was watching a drum video. He's a well-known YouTube drum tutor. What he finds helpful when coming back to practicing the drums after being away for a wee while is that you just sit down and play the beat that comes most naturally to you. You play your go-to beat, your most confident beat, the beat that gives you the most enjoyment and satisfaction. It doesn't have to be the most complicated thing. In fact, it shouldn't be. And so what you should do in that moment is sit down, play the first thing that comes to mind, and that is your starting point. I never thought of things like that. What's my starting point? Well, let's just find out. I wonder if you've been away from the Bible for a wee while. I wonder if you found prayer a right struggle over these past few days, weeks, perhaps months. How can we get back to things? We go back to whatever we find most helpful. For me, if I find prayer a struggle, I go back to saying the Lord's Prayer. I say it every day. I might want to pray the Aaronic blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. What about reading the Bible? Well, I might want to go back to a Bible reading plan. Or if that's maybe a bit difficult at this time, I might simply want to read through the Gospels, the life of Jesus. I might also want to read a psalm every now and again. Things that will bring me back to life and that will display God's life. That's the third thing I believe the drums have to teach us about the Christian life. And lastly, fourth point, what the drums have to teach us about the Christian life. When you get back into those spiritual rhythms, when you keep in step with the Spirit, when you learn more to hear His voice, when you take an active role in that, and when you play along to the rhythms that God has given you, you start to play more complicated things. Or God starts giving you more complicated rhythms because He knows that you can handle more complicated rhythms. But these things happen step by step. That's why it says in the Bible, keep in step with the Spirit. And that's why it's on the back of a whole list of amazing things: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Because when we live by the Spirit and we crucify the desires of the flesh and all the things that have held us back and all the things that are holding us back, and we surrender to God's life-giving Spirit, then we'll learn to keep in step with Him, so that we'll live fruitful, God-honouring, and Spirit-filled lives. And so what's left for me to do but to play out and hear the rhythms of the Spirit?